Hello everyone, welcome to week 4 of learning motion graphics design and also the last day of learning the basics of Adobe After Effects. Today we are going to be reviewing all that we have done in the first week of learning Adobe After Effects, also what we have done in the second week and also the third week. And also today we are going to take a look at how to export our final project outside of Adobe After Effects so we can make use of it on our mobile device or any other device that we want to use for playback. So now let's get started. In the beginning of the class, we looked at what Adobe After Effects is being used for and the reason why you should even work in Adobe After Effects in the first place. Now, Adobe After Effects will help you to make motion graphics designs that you can use for TV promotion. There are a lot of ways you can use Adobe After Effects, and one of the beauty of Adobe After Effects is the fact that you can create something out of nothing while you're working within Adobe After Effects. So this means once you launch Adobe After Effects, you don't need to bring any resource into Adobe After Effects. Once you are within the workspace of Adobe After Effects, you can use the tools within Adobe After Effects to create whatever motion graphics design that suits your project. In Adobe After Effects, there are panels that makes the interface. Also, there are menus that you can see at the top of the Adobe After Effects interface. So this menu is where you find various functions and options that will help you complete your work within Adobe After Effects. So one of these that we have to look at right now is the file menu. So under file, you can easily create new projects, and also you can create new folder, new theme project. And also under file, you can open a recent project that you've worked on and you can import into Adobe After Effects. You can also save your project under the file menu and you can import files into Adobe After Effects. If you're on a Windows computer, you can go to the edit menu where you can set up preferences for your project. Or if you're on a MacBook Pro, you can also go to the After Effects menu and you'll find preferences that will also help you to put one or two settings together for your Adobe After Effects workspace. Then also you will find the effects menu where you will see the list of different effects that you can use within After Effects. And lastly, if you go to the Windows menu, you will find the workspace where you see the list of workspaces that will help you to put one or two panels together by presets. And also under the window menu, you will find different panels that you can either disable or enable to get your job done. All right. So now we're also going to take a look at importing files into After Effects. In the project panel, if you click twice within this space, it will help you to import files into After Effects. And also, if you right click within this space, you will be able to also import your file into Adobe After Effects. Again, if you click on the file menu, you can import file into After Effects also. Now let's get started by creating a new composition. Now I'm going to call the new composition main comp. Also, I'm going to change the preset under the basic settings to HDTV 1080-25, and I'll leave the width, the height as it is. And also, I'm going to leave the frame rate as 25 frames per second. Then I'll leave the duration as 10 seconds. So if need be, I'm going to increase the duration of the timeline to something longer. The background color I'll leave as it is, and I'm going to click OK. All right. So now the first thing we want to do is to quickly take a look at one or two tools under the tool section. Now to start using the composition, we are going to create a solid layer by going to layer new solid, and then I'm going to leave the name of the solid as it is. If there is need, I'm going to change it at a later time, and then the width and the height I'll leave as it is also. Then I'm going to press OK. All right. So now I'll go to the tool section and then I'm going to make use of the pen tool now. So I'll click on the pen tool. I'll click on the screen, but first make sure you have the solid layer selected in the composition area. Now I'm going to click on the screen, then I'll click again, and then without releasing the mouse, I will move it around. Okay. Then I'm going to make a third point. Okay, so now I'll click on the selection tool again, and now I'll also go to the effect menu and then go to generate and then click on stroke. All right, so now that I have the stroke effect on the line that I've just created, I'm going to turn off the mask part that we can see right now to make sure that the effect of the stroke is being seen. So now I'm going to toggle off the mask part visibility option that you can see here, so we can see the effect of the stroke. All right, so now the first thing I want to do with this is to set keyframe and make sure I put this line into motion. I'll make sure that the blue line that you can see here is on the first frame, which is the beginning of the layer that we have in the composition. Now, first thing I'm going to do is to open up the effect property of this layer. So I'll go to the arrow on the left side, then click and also go to effects and stroke. All right. So now I'm going to click the stopwatch toggle for start under the stroke properties to set the first keyframe. All right. So I have the first keyframe set, and I'm going to move forward like 6 frames in time. Okay, and I'm going to set the second keyframe without using the stopwatch toggle again. So I'll use the add or remove keyframe at current time. All right, so now that I have the first and the second keyframe created, I'll go back to the first keyframe and I'm going to adjust the value of the start property of the stroke. So I'll make sure I increase to 100%. All right, then I'll go to the second keyframe. So I'll set a keyframe for the end property by clicking on the stopwatch toggle, and I'm going to go 12 frames in time. Then I'll set another keyframe for the end property of the stroke. So on the end property, I'll also make sure that the end value is turned down to 0. Okay, so now if I play back, that's what I have. Okay, so now that we already have this activity happening on the screen, I'm going to make sure that the gray background that we have created, which is the solid layer we have here, is turned off. So I'm going to turn it off using the stroke effect that I have added to the solid layer. So under the paint style, I'll change on original image to on transparent. All right, because we don't need the solid layer anymore, but we need it to hold our pen line and the effect that we are using it for. Now I'm going to import an image into Adobe After Effects by double clicking within this space, and then I'm going to select the image and click open. Okay, so now that I have the image in Adobe After Effects, I'll click and drag into the composition area, and then I'm going to align this image to the right. Now that I have the image still selected, I'm going to the position properties of this image layer we have now. So to do that, I'm going to press P on the keyboard to reveal the position property of the layer, and I'm going to adjust the X position of the image layer to the right side of the screen. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is to make sure that I create a track matte that will help us hide and also reveal this image layer that we have now. So to do that, I'm going to the layer menu and then click on new and solid. Okay, so I'm going to create a solid layer that will help us achieve the revealing and hiding of the image by clicking on OK, because I'm okay with the settings that I have here and I don't need to change the name also. So I'm going to click on OK. All right, so now I'll try to reposition this solid to make sure that I can see the image for now. So now I'll press shift on the keyboard and also the left arrow key on the keyboard at the same time to move 10 pixels at a time to the left side of the screen until I have the image fully revealed. Okay, so something like this. Now the next thing I also want to do is to bring the solid layer I have now down to the top of the image that I have on the timeline. Now I'm going to change the track matte settings of the image layer to make use of the layer on top of it. So now I'll go to the track matte option in the track matte column you can see here, then click on alpha inverted matte. Okay, so now the solid layer is available on the screen, but we can't see it because the image we have here is making use of it. So now at this point I'm going to set the position for the image we have here to start from the left side and then end on the right side. So now I'll go to the beginning of the timeline and also make sure that I have the layer selected, and on the position property I'll click on the stopwatch toggle and then I'll go forward about 12 frames. Okay, and then I'm going to set another keyframe. So now I'll go to the first keyframe that I've created here and I'll adjust the X position of the image layer to make sure it goes to the left side of the screen. Okay, so by so doing, the image will be hidden from the screen. Then moving to the second keyframe, the image will be revealed on the screen. All right, so now that I have this done, I'm also going to quickly create a fancy effect that will take place before this image is revealed. So this time I'm also going to create a new solid layer. Then I'll leave the settings as it is and then I'm going to click OK. So right now what I want to do is to make use of the rectangle tool that you can see here. So I'll click on the rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a mask around this solid layer that I have selected here. So I'll click anywhere on the screen and then I'm going to draw the rectangle just this way. All right, now we are going to play with this rectangle a little bit and we are going to make use of keyframe. So I'll go back to the selection tool now, then I'm going to click on the rectangle shape that we have created on the screen, or I'm going to click on the rectangle layer that you can see in the composition area. Okay, so now let me quickly rename it and call it rectangle line. Okay, and also I'm going to rename this layer and call it reveal image. Okay, so now let me click on the rectangle line again and then I'm going to set keyframe for this layer. So it's going to be animated to display on the screen and also is going to be animated to leave the screen. So I'll go to the first frame on the timeline and then I'll open up the mask property of the rectangle line that we have just created, and then I'm going to toggle on the stopwatch for the mask part. Okay, so now I'll go about 7 frames in time. Okay, and I'm also going to set another keyframe. Now I'll go to the first keyframe and then I'm going to adjust the mask that is around the solid layer that we have here to make sure that it is pushed to the top of the screen and outside of the screen. Okay, so now that I have the mask part selected, or make sure that if you don't see the 4 points selected at the same time, you have to press shift on the keyboard and make sure that you manually select the 4 points to make sure that you have all of the points on the mask selected. Okay, so now I'm going to push the mask to the top of the screen and outside of the screen. So I'll press shift on the keyboard and then the up arrow key on the keyboard at the same time. All right, I also want to make sure that once the rectangle shape is fully revealed, I want to go about 5 frames forward. That means at 12 frames I want to reduce the size or the width of this line that we have here. So I'm going to select just the 2 points that we have now by pressing shift and then select the 2 points. Then I'll also press shift again and the right arrow key on the keyboard to quickly reduce the width of the rectangle line that we have. Okay, so now at this point I'll go like 5 frames forward also, which is about 17 frames, and I'm also going to select the 2 points that we have up here. So now I'm going to zoom in so we can see clearly. All right. So now I'm going to press shift to select the second point. Okay. Now I'll go to fit up to 100% again so we can see all that we have on the screen. And I'm going to press shift and then the down arrow to move the 2 points at the same time. All right. Now I have noticed that 1 point from here is also selected. So I'm going to deselect by pressing shift and then click on the point again to deselect it. All right, so now I'll press shift and the down arrow key on the keyboard to move the 2 points down until I can no longer see the mask on the screen. Okay, so now if I play back what I have, that's what it is. So first I'm going to change the color of this solid layer so you can see clearly what the movement looks like on the screen. Okay, so I'll change it to white and then I'll press OK. All right, so I'll play back again and I'll make sure that I pause frame after frame. So on the first keyframe to the second keyframe, the rectangle layer was revealed, and on the second keyframe to the third keyframe, the rectangle layer's width was adjusted, and on the third keyframe to the last keyframe, the rectangle line was removed from the screen. Okay, now I have noticed that the movement is too fast, so I'm going to select the keyframes and then adjust the movement so it can make more sense to us. So I'm going to play back again. And then it seems it makes more sense now. So let me just adjust this a little bit. So I'm going to set the easy ease option for these three keyframes that I have here so the animation will be smooth. So I'll right click while I have the three keyframes selected and I'll go to keyframe assistant and I'll click easy ease. All right. So now I'll play back to see what it looks like. All right. So now that we have this done, so now I'm going to quickly create a text layer also to add to the design we already have, image. Then I'll press OK. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create a text graphics for this design we already have. So I'll go to the tool section and then click on the text tool. Then I'll click on the screen to type the text. So I'm going to type learning Adobe After Effects. Okay, then I'll click on the selection tool and I'm going to reduce the size to about 58. Okay, so I'm going to break the text into two by editing the text, then I'll cut it to 2. Then I'm going to adjust the line spacing for this text. All right, so I'm going to align to right. Okay, so I'll bring it to this side. So I'm going to quickly create a line that will serve as the starting point of hiding and revealing this text that we already have here. Okay, so I'll go to layer, new, and then click on solid. Okay, and I'm going to set the height to be about 3, and also I'll make sure the width is around 1000. Okay, so now I'll move it forward to somewhere around here. Okay, so I'm also going to create a solid layer that will help us to hide this text. So now I'll make sure that the solid layer is readjusted back to the composition size. So this is the function and the use of this button you can see here. So once you click make comp size, the width and the height will automatically take the width and the height of the composition settings that we have. So I'll click make comp size and then I'm going to click OK. All right, so this is what I have now. Now I'm going to drag this down a little bit to somewhere around here because I want to use this solid layer as a track mat. Okay, so now that I have it there, I'm going to also drag this white layer on top of the text layer that we have here. So quickly adjust the name and then press enter on the keyboard to rename it. So I'll call it review text. Okay, so I'm going to quickly adjust the track matte of the text layer that we have here to make use of the review text solid layer as its hiding position. Okay, so I'll click on the option for track matte and then select alpha inverted matte. Okay, so now what I want to do is to make sure that this text is taken to somewhere around here so it becomes hidden, and then we'll set keyframe that will help us reveal it at this position. So I'll open up the position property of the text layer now by pressing P on the keyboard, and then I will set the stopwatch toggle while I'm on the first frame of that layer. Now I'm going to move forward like about 7 frames. Okay, and then I'm going to set a new keyframe. All right, so I'll go to the first keyframe and I'm going to adjust the Y position. All right, so let's play back to see what we have now. All right, so now I'll also make sure that I duplicate this text and the review text layer that we have here to write the other part of the text. So I'm going to select on this text layer and the review text solid layer that we have. Okay, and then I'm going to click on edit menu and then click on duplicate. All right, so now we have the second text. So what I'm going to do is to make sure that on the first frame, okay, on the first frame, I'm going to adjust the position of the review text 2 that we have here. So I'll press shift on the keyboard and then press the up arrow key on the keyboard at the same time to move the review text layer to the top. Okay, so now that it is somewhere around here, now I'm going to also open up the keyframe properties of the second text layer that we have here, and I'm going to press U on the keyboard to reveal the keyframe properties. Okay, so now on the first keyframe, I'll make sure that I adjust the Y position of the text layer to make sure that it goes up and it becomes hidden. Okay, and now I'll go to the second keyframe and I'll make sure that I also adjust the Y position to come down and make sure that it becomes revealed. All right, so now I'm going to change this text. So we'll change the text by either double clicking or click on the text tool and then click on the text layer on the screen. Okay, so I'll press Command A or Control A on the Windows keyboard to select all of the text, and I'll change the text to "is fun." Okay, so now I'll quickly adjust the font properties of this text layer that we have here by going to this side, and I'm going to quickly change the font size to about 120. Okay, so now I'll also try to adjust the keyframe for the position property. So now on the second keyframe, I'll adjust the Y position by bringing it down a little bit, just like this. All right, so you can use any font that you want to create what we are doing now. All right, so now let's play back what we already have. All right, so now we are not going to leave this line the way it is. We are going to make use of it very quickly. Now what I'm going to do to this is to bring it behind the image that we have here, because the part of this solid that is showing on the image, we don't need it, so I'm going to hide it under the image. So I'll click and drag to bring it behind the reveal image layer. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is to also quickly set keyframe to make sure that this solid layer is also revealed. So now I'm going to open up the position properties of this solid layer by pressing P on the keyboard, and then I'm going to click on the stopwatch toggle to create the first keyframe, and I'll just move forward a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to set a second keyframe, and I'll also move forward one more time to set another keyframe. Okay, so I'll go to the first keyframe and I'll make sure that I move the solid layer to the right side and out of the screen completely. Okay, so I'll go to the second keyframe now, and then I'll move the line to the right just a little bit, somewhere around here, and then I'll make sure that on the third keyframe the line is where it is. Okay, so now let's play back and see what it looks like. All right, so I'm going to set the easy ease for these two keyframes by right clicking on both, and then I'll click easy ease. All right, so let me also move the two keyframes close to the first one, just like this. So let's play back. So at this point, I'm also going to pre-compose all of the elements that we have here. So which is the solid line that we have here, and also the text and the review text layers that we have. So now that I have all of the layers selected, I'll go to layer and then click on pre-compose. Okay, so I'm going to call this review text. Okay, so now we have two pre-composed layers in the main composition that we have here, and then you can see that now that I have the review text layer on top of the review image layer, the line is now showing. So what I'm going to do is to click on this layer and then bring it behind the review image layer so that we are going to have it hidden at the same time. Okay, so now that we have everything working for us this way, let's try to quickly rearrange and reposition things to make sure everything is playing exactly the way we want. But if we have to play back now, this is what we have for now. Okay, so what I want to do now is to make sure that every element that we have on the screen is displayed at the right time that we want it to be displayed, and it also stops at the right time we want it to stop. Firstly, I want to make sure that the review text composition we have here is well arranged. So if you notice, the text came first before the line. But what I want is to make sure that the line comes first before the text. Okay, so I'm going to look for the text layer and then push it backward on the timeline. Okay, and then make sure that I reveal the keyframes on the solid layer we have here. So if you press U on the keyboard, you'll be able to reveal or hide the keyframes that you have on the layer. Okay, so now I'll select all of these keyframes and then I'll move it to the first frame here to make sure that the first keyframe is resting on the blue line that we have here. Okay, so now I want to also make sure that at this point that the text is now coming out. Okay, so I'll select all of the four layers for the text and I'll position it somewhere around here. Okay, so now if I try to preview what I have, okay, so let's play back. Okay, so this is perfect right now, and I'll go to the main composition and also go to the reveal image, and then let's quickly play back to see what it looks like. Okay, so this is perfect, but I'm going to remove the coily line that we created somewhere around here, and then I'm going to cut by pressing Command X or Control X on the Windows keyboard, and then I'm going to place it in the main comp by pressing Command V or Control V on the keyboard. Okay, so now I'll go back to the reveal image composition and let's play back again. So now I love the reveal image composition the way it is, but I want to make sure that I duplicate this rectangle solid that we have here to make it more fancy. So what I'm going to do now is select the rectangle line layer and then I'm going to duplicate. So I'll press Command D or Control D on Windows keyboard, and then I'm going to move it forward on the timeline. Okay, so now you cannot really see what is happening here. So I'm going to change the color of the two solid layers to help us differentiate between them, because now they both have the same color. So I'll select the rectangle line 2 and then go to layer solid settings, and then I'll click, let me move it aside, then I'll click on the let me pick from the color on the screen. Okay, then I'll click new. Okay, then I'll click on the second rectangle that we have here. I'll go to layer, then click on solid settings, and I'm going to click the color picker, and then I'm going to select a color from around here. Okay, so I'll press OK. All right. So now I have two different colors and we can see what is happening now. All right. So let me move this around here a little bit and then play back. So at this point, I want to also try and move the other rectangle line too to the left side a little bit. So I'll open the position property by pressing P on the keyboard, and then I'll adjust the X position to move it somewhere around here. Okay. All right. So let's remove the mask part by toggling off the mask part visibility. All right. So let me play back now to see what we have. All right. So now I'm good with what I have here. All right. So if I come back to the main comp, so let's quickly turn off the mask part visibility again and then play back. At this point, I want the reveal text layer to appear somewhere around here. Okay, so I'll move the reveal text layer and then shift to the right side on the timeline to somewhere here. Okay, so let me play back again. All right, so now again, I also want the coily line that we have. Let me quickly rename it. So I'll press enter on the keyboard and then I'll change it to coily line. Okay, so I want the coily line to also reveal at somewhere around here, and then I'm going to reposition by pressing P on the keyboard, and I'm going to adjust the Y position to somewhere here, and then the X position also to somewhere around here. Okay, so let's play back. All right, so now I'm also going to duplicate this layer to create a duplicate of the coily line by pressing Command D or Control D on the keyboard. Okay, and then I'm going to reveal the keyframe for the second layer by pressing U on the keyboard, and I'll go to the last keyframe, and then I'm going to slice the layer into two by pressing Command Shift D on the keyboard or Control Shift D on the Windows keyboard. Now I no longer need this part of the solid layer, so I'm going to press delete to remove it. Okay, so now I will also make sure that this particular solid layer, which is the coily line 2 that we have here, is also reversed in motion. So how do I achieve this? I'll right click on this solid layer, and then I'll go to time and then click on time reversed layer. So now that I have the coily line 2 reversed in time, I'm going to adjust the position by pressing P on the keyboard to reveal the position properties, and then I'm going to adjust the Y position to bring it down somewhere around here. Okay, so now I'm going to play back. So now that we have done this, I want to make sure that I close up the gap that is in between the text that we have created and the image that we have on the screen. So I'll select the reveal text layer, okay, and then I'm going to also press P on the keyboard to reveal the position properties. So somewhere around here where I have only the text and the image on the screen, somewhere here, I'm going to set the stopwatch toggle for the text layer, which is the reveal text layer. Then I'll move forward somewhere around 4 seconds or 5 seconds. Okay, and I'm going to adjust the X position to make sure that it is somewhere here. Okay, so let me move the keyframe forward about okay, let's move it to about 2 seconds. All right, then I'm going to set the easy ease by right clicking on this last keyframe, and I'll go to keyframe assistant, and then I'll click easy ease to make sure that the movement of the reveal text layer is smooth. So now what I want to do is to duplicate the reveal text layer to create the remaining part of the text that we want for this design. All right, the reason we are going to do it like this is because we have all of the properties, the animation, the motion effect, and all the keyframes every adjustment set for this review text, and we need to make a replica of this layer, all of the movements and the text and the formats that we have here for our second layer. So instead of having to create it from scratch, we are going to duplicate this layer and just make few adjustments to it. So now what I will do is select the layer and then go to duplicate, okay, to duplicate the layer. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to move somewhere around here, okay, and then after the last keyframe here, just a little bit before the last keyframe, I'm going to slice this review text layer that I have here. So to slice, you have to press Command Shift D on the keyboard or Control Shift D on Windows keyboard to slice your layer. So I don't want this other part anymore, okay, so I'm going to delete it. Now that I have the blue timeline still here, I'm going to select the second review text layer and then I will press the open square bracket on the keyboard. You will find the open square bracket key close to the letter P on the keyboard. So I'll press now to quickly move this layer to where the blue line is, okay? So now I'll also quickly change the name of this review text layer to review text layer 2. Okay, at this point, let's quickly play back to see what it looks like. So now I'm going to change the content of review text 2 layer. But before we do that, remember if we open this layer as a new composition, we are still going to be opening the review text composition that we already have here. So even if I click on review text layer, it will still open as this same composition. To achieve the purpose of changing the content of review text 2 without affecting the content of the review text layer, we are going to duplicate review text composition under the project panel. It is very, very important you do so. Otherwise, whatever adjustment you make within the review text 2 layer will affect the review text layer, okay? So now that I'm going to select review text layer and then I'll press Command D or Control D on Windows keyboard to have a duplicate. So now that I have a duplicate, I'll click, drag, then hold Option or Alt on the Windows keyboard and then release on the second layer. Okay, so now if I double click to open review text 2 layer, it's going to open as a separate composition. So we can now make adjustments to this composition that we have now without affecting the other composition we have here. So I'm going to quickly change the text of this composition by saying, now I'm a proud motion. Then I'll go to the second text layer and I'll change to designer. Okay, so I'll click on the selection tool again, and now if I play back, all right, so this is what we have now. So now I'll go to the main composition and also play back what we have done. Okay, so I'm also going to duplicate the coily lines and then bring it on top of the second review text layer that we have here. Okay, so let me quickly reduce the length of this coily line by revealing the keyframes, and then I'll go to the last keyframe and I'm going to slice into 2. All right, so I'll delete the other parts and then I'm going to duplicate the 2. All right, and then I'll bring down to somewhere here and on top of the text layer, and also I'll bring the other coily lines down here on top of the first text layer. So let me select and then bring it somewhere here. So lastly, we are going to export the composition. So to export your composition, you have to make sure that you have the composition you want to export selected, just as we have the main comp active. Okay, so then you go to composition menu and then you click add to render queue. Okay, so now once you add to the render queue, you have to make one or two adjustments. And the first adjustment you want to make is on the output module that you can see here. So you have to click lossless, adjust the properties of the main options tab that you can see here. So the first thing you want to do is to change the format that you want to export. So in this case, I'm going to export as QuickTime format, okay? And the QuickTime format will give me the extension of .mov. Now, the best format for playback is MP4. But right now, in the list of the formats that is here, there's no MP4 in the list, okay? So I'm going to make use of QuickTime, all right? And I'm going to export, then convert the QuickTime format to MP4 format so it can be played back on almost every device, all right? So other video outputs section that you can see here, make sure it is checked. If it is unchecked, then your video will not be exported, okay? All right, so now I'll make sure that the video output is checked, and then make sure that all of the settings you can see here, leave it the way it is. All right, then on the audio output auto, if you have an audio layer that is within your composition, make sure you change to audio output on, or just leave it by default to audio output auto. All right, so everything is now perfect as it is. Then I'll press OK. So now that I've made adjustments, you can see that custom is already added because I've made adjustments to the output module. Okay, so now I'll also go to the output tool and then change the location on my computer that I want to output the video into. All right, so now I'm going to quickly go to documents and then IMA training, and then I'm going to export into the training folder, and I'm going to call it main com. All right, so now I'll export, and then it will be exported as quicktime.mov video. So I'll click on save. All right, so now the last thing that you will do here after you've made these two settings, click on render. So this is what rendering or exporting video in Adobe After Effects looks like. So your video will be exported and it will be saved in the location that you want it to be. Now the video is exported. So if I go to the folder where I saved it, you can see it's now saved as a video for playback. Finally, we have come to the end of the class, and I am very happy that you have gained one or two things learning Adobe After Effects to create motion graphics design. Thank you for being a part of the class, and thank you for joining us from beginning to the end of the September class.